Klay Thompson came into Golden State, into Chase Center Arena for the first time as not a Warrior, but this time a Dallas Maverick. On today's episode of State of the Association, I am your host, Nash Roberts. The night started off with a tribute video that the Warriors put up on the screen for Klay Thompson, and I think that's a good reason to discuss his legacy in Golden State. Because while Golden State has had some of the greatest players of all time to play for their franchise, guys like Wilt Chamberlain and Steph Curry, Klay Thompson is up there with the rest of them in terms of his accolades as a Golden State Warrior. He won 4 rings alongside Steph Curry and Draymond Green, was pivotal for that team throughout the 2010s, and was part of perhaps the best basketball backcourt in NBA history. They were called the Splash Brothers, of course. Him and Steph Curry splashing threes from beyond the arc. And this is an archetype of team where they live and die by the three. And that wouldn't have been possible so much if it was Steph Curry and anyone else. But when you have 2 of the greatest shooters of all time playing for your team at the same time, you can make it work. Because we've seen other teams, besides the Celtics, of course, they just won most recently. We've seen other teams try to live and die by the three. And really hasn't worked out, whether it was the Rockets blowing that lead to Golden State, among other examples. But the Golden State Warriors were able to do it because of the talent of not just Steph Curry, but the way that Klay Thompson fit like a glove alongside him. He was great on the offensive end, of course. Amazing second option right next to Steph Curry. And Curry, with his gravity, as we always talk about in his the Steph Curry debates, that was able to open up a lot of opportunities for Klay Thompson. But those opportunities don't matter if you aren't able to hit your shots. But he absolutely did, and is one of the greatest shooters of all time in his own right, and one of the greatest Warriors of all time. And focusing on the defensive end, of course, that's where Klay brought a lot of his value as well. Because until he started dealing with injuries towards the back half of his career now, he was one of the best defenders year by year in the entire NBA. And at the same time, the Warriors had another elite defender in Draymond Green. So to have 2 of those guys, that was pivotal for that defense. And they were able to make it a great unit alongside the Warriors' offensive talent as well. So Klay was a perfect fit for that big 3 Warriors between him, Steph, and Draymond. That is one of the most influential cores of all time, one of the most winningest cores of all time. And Klay Thompson is without a doubt a Golden State legend, and rightfully so. You can have your NBA 75 conversations about whether he does deserve it or whether he doesn't, but the fact that you can even have a debate about that proves the stature of player that he is, because there's only 75 players, of course, that get to even be in the discussion and, on the actual list. And while he didn't actually make it, a lot of people said he was a snub. So he might have been 76 or 77. And so to be that with the volume of players that have played throughout all time in NBA history, to be one of the top 80-ish, that's amazing. And Klay Thompson is an all-time great player, one of the best shooters that we've ever seen, and he was pivotal for that Golden State Warriors team just as much as a Draymond Green and Steph Curry in terms of having irreplaceable value. On to the game itself, I'm going to talk about Dallas first. One can argue that their offense is a little bit too much one-dimensional in terms of just having Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic play iso ball and kick it out to a Klay or a Washington or lob it up to a Gafford or a Lively. And there is some truth to that for sure. I think the philosophy with the Dallas offense, while they haven't won much this year, they're just having a middling record to this point. The philosophy is kind of the same case as the Golden State Warriors having a method of living and dying by the three by having the 2 greatest shooters of all time. The Mavs have a similar motto between Luka and Kyrie, and that is that these are 2 of the most offensively talented point guards in the entire league. Why can't we play iso ball and live or die by those 2? And the issue with that is that we have just seen heliocentric, ball-dominant guards. They don't always have the best history in terms of real proper championship success. You've got to have the perfect tools around them for that to really work. And the Mavs have some good pieces for sure. However, ultimately, if Luka or Kyrie are off, then that kind of can just disrupt the tone of the whole offense for the Dallas Mavericks. And when those 2 guys are so important to the functioning of your offense, and you have to rely on them night in, night out, it can create issues. And so I think allowing them to play more within the system, while obviously they have all the talent in the world, I think allowing them to play more so in a system that is beneficial to the other players on the roster and exemplifies the other players' talents as well, I think that could really take this team to the next level because they have a lot of talent and they have some really good role players to back these two guys up. However, I don't know that they're quite there yet just with the way they run their offense. However, Klay's fit with the team is great. He's a perfect fit for the Dallas Mavericks, a lights-out shooter, and even though the ISO ball may not be the best in terms of championship success in case Luka and Kyrie are having an off game, it's certainly working for Klay Thompson right now. He had 22 points this game, and he looks like a perfect fit for the Dallas Mavericks. He is thriving in Dallas. And in his last few years with Golden State, Klay caught a lot of criticism, largely for his declining play and overall impact on winning. However, he has looked great as a Dallas Maverick, and he's fit in seamlessly. He's a great pickup for this team. I just kind of worry about the other utilization of talents on this roster. But it's through no fault of Klay's own. He's been great as a Dallas Maverick. Even if 31 looks a little off on him. One thing about the Dallas Mavericks, though, I do also like their big tandem. Are they going to space the floor? No, but they've got two great lob threats at the center position in Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively. And this was a position that for so long they struggled to find depth in. They were running Dwight Powell year after year. But they've got two really good options now. And I bring up Daniel Gafford. He didn't have the best game. At one point, he got blocked by Draymond, and then he got subbed out quite shortly after by Jason Kidd. However, to have two dynamic, athletic centers that a guy with the court vision of Luka Doncic can just throw a lob to at most times, that's a good recipe. And to just be able to slide, one or the other in, that's really good depth, and I think that's one of the highlights and strong points of the Dallas Mavericks team, even if Gafford didn't have the greatest game. But speaking of Draymond, though, we can transition over to the Warriors now. He has been a great defender this NBA season, and there's calls for him to be first in the DPOY race right now, and I think that is very reasonable. This is someone who, over the last couple of years, has kind of been marred by controversy, more so it seems like, as opposed to his actual play on the court, especially on the defensive end. It looks like he's just been declining, and Father Time is really getting to him. But this year, he seems rejuvenated, and he is the voice of that defense. He's the anchor of it, the leader. Whatever it might be, he is invaluable to this Golden State Warriors defense. And so for him to be back on top, playing defense at an elite level, that is huge for the Golden State Warriors. And that's a big reason why they've got off to such a great start to the year. There's other reasons too. They've got a lot of good depth. Steph Curry has had a great season so far. However, Draymond Green really coming back to form and being the defender that he once was, that's going to do wonders for them. So, especially in the playoffs, if Draymond Green is able to continue this and maybe even win a second DPOY, that's going to be huge for the Golden State Warriors and their championship contention because they look like a real contender right now. I didn't have them that way going into the season, but they look great. And a big part of that has been Draymond's defense, but another part of it has been the success of some role players. Buddy Hield has been a great fit for them, but someone I want to highlight here is D'Anthony Melton. He had 14, 4, and 4 this game. Nothing eye-popping, but it was a pretty good, solid performance from him. Over in Philadelphia, I believe he had one bad shooting season when he was injured, but prior to that, he had 3 straight good years of really good three-point percentages. This is also a guy who can create and play make off the dribble. And as a result, the Warriors don't have to fully rely on Steph Curry, and they can allow Steph to utilize his off-the-ball talents as well because you have another guy who can be a very capable ball handler. And on the defensive end is where D'Anthony really shines. He's an elite point of attack defender. So to put him into this Golden State offense, where he can take some of the load off Steph Curry, and then on the defensive end, where he can lock in and be a great perimeter defender for them, I think D'Anthony is a great fit, and he's going to do really well in Golden State this year. Now, last talking point here is the man himself, Steph Curry. He had 37 points and 9 boards. Plus an overall great fourth quarter performance where the Golden State Warriors were down at one point, but Steph was able to really rally and lead them to victory over the Dallas Mavericks. He's an all-time point guard, top 2, no doubt. And if he was able to get another ring, if the Warriors are truly a championship contender this year, I think that we could really have conversations about Steph truly being the number 1 greatest point guard of all time, just for the way that he has revolutionized the game and also just his impact on the court. Overall, he's an all-time great, no doubt. And he was feeling himself too. He was at the end there talking about this is my house. And ultimately, Golden State is Steph Curry's house. Because as great as Klay Thompson, as great as Draymond Green are, and how pivotal they were to the Warriors dynasty, at the end of the day, it was all built around Steph Curry. And he's one of the two greatest point guards of all time, and continuing to show that as he ages. His longevity has been unprecedented alongside with a guy like KD, like LeBron, and he's continuing to show why he's an all-time great and the greatest shooter of all time, undoubtedly. And him and Klay Thompson, that backcourt, to have two elite shooters, the Splash Brothers were a special, special backcourt. And it's a shame that they're not together anymore, but both guys are thriving in new environments. I think Dallas is ultimately going to get better record-wise. And they have a lot of talent on their roster. Klay is fitting in seamlessly. And then the other end, Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors. They've really been a surprise this season as to how good they've been. So both guys, as sad as it is to see them split, they're off in pretty good trajectories right now. Klay has rejuvenated himself in Dallas, and it's going to be a good send-off for both these guys. They've been able to extend their careers, overcome injuries, and in all of this, to sum it all up, Klay Thompson had a great homecoming to Golden State. It allowed us to go take a look at his legacy, evaluate some of the Dallas Mavericks offense, evaluate Steph Curry's legacy as well, and how pivotal Draymond, Klay, and Steph were to this Warriors dynasty. You could not, if you replace one of these guys, they're winning at least one less championship because they were all so important to this team, and they're continuing to show out as they age, and that's wonderful to see. It was a great homecoming for Klay Thompson. As weird as it is to see him in a Dallas Mavericks jersey, and as weird as it is to see him wearing number 31, he is absolutely succeeding in Dallas despite this loss. He's a wonderful fit there. And now that he's playing at a higher level than he had been the past few seasons, I think it's really time that we can sit back and appreciate Klay Thompson and all that he brings once again. What a great homecoming it was. And that is all for State of the Association. I'm your host, Nash Roberts. Thank you for listening.